I found it in a box I wasn't supposed to open. It was early October, and the kind of cold that settles in before the wind even starts. Dry air, brittle like paper. I'd gone up to the attic looking for a photo album, something to show the insurance guy after the flood damage in the basement. But the insulation up there was torn to hell, and the light bulb swung on a crooked wire like it had been nudged recently. Not by wind, there was no breeze. Just that stale, sour attic smell. Mouse shit, damp cardboard, the faint metallic bite of rust. The shoebox wasn't hidden well, but it wasn't meant to be found either. Someone had shoved it between a warped box of Christmas decorations and a broken fan, tucked beneath an old t-shirt. I only noticed it because the shirt was just barely hanging off the edge, like a tongue. Faded Sharpie on the lid, just one line. Kara, do not touch. I froze when I saw her name. 10 years, and it still felt like stepping on glass. I just stood there for a long moment, fingertips hovering, a buzzing in the base of my skull. It didn't feel like nostalgia. It felt like heat. I didn't touch it right away. My knees locked. My stomach flipped. There was something sacred about it, something private and sad, and I wanted to be the kind of person who respected that. But my hand moved anyway. Just one corner at first, then the whole lid. Inside, a spiral-bound notebook, a few crumpled pieces of paper, and a folded pink sheet with a dried daisy pressed inside. Everything smelled like old perfume and dust. I picked up the notebook. It was heavier than it should have been. The first page was blank, second one too, but the third had her handwriting, rounded, sharp R's, the kind of script teachers used to praise. I ran my thumb along the ink. It felt too real. August 14th. Mom thinks I'm being dramatic again. She says I need to stop making things up, but I know what I heard. There was someone in the vent last night, scratching, like fingernails, long, slow, like they wanted me to know they were there. I told her, and she just looked at me like I was a dog that pissed on the rug. I sat down right there on the attic floor. My knees were starting to ache, but I didn't care. I flipped to the next entry. August 16th. I tried recording it. I set my phone near the vent and left it running while I pretended to sleep. When I played it back, there were footsteps, I swear. Slow, quiet ones, right outside my door. But when I showed Mom, she said it was just house noises. She deleted the file and told me to get fresh air. There was more. Pages and pages. I don't remember flipping them, just that they passed through my hands like dead leaves. Her voice got darker the further I went, more desperate, and then one line stopped me cold. If anything happens to me, it's not because I ran away. I'm not running. I'm being watched. He's waiting for something, and I think he's inside the house. That was when I dropped the book. That was when I realized my hand was shaking, because Kara didn't run away. That's what we told people, what Mom told the police, what we all rehearsed until it felt like truth. But I remember the night she disappeared, and I remember the smell. It was like metal and something else, like something rotting just out of sight. I brought the diary downstairs with me. I don't know why. Maybe I thought I could read it in the kitchen, in the morning light, and it wouldn't feel as heavy. But the words followed me. They didn't want light. They sat inside the house like smoke, curling through the air unnoticed until they filled every room. I didn't tell my mother I found it. She still lives here, in the same house, like nothing ever happened. Her bedroom is on the other side of the hall. She walks slow now, a little hunched, like someone constantly bracing for bad news. That first night, I stayed up reading until 3:17 a.m. I remember the clock exactly because I checked it over and over again, like the time would somehow anchor me to something real. But the words kept pulling me further out. August 22nd. He knows I know. I think that's why he stopped hiding the sounds. Last night, he opened my closet door and just stood there. I could hear his breathing. I didn't move. I couldn't. I waited almost 2 hours before I got up, and the door was closed again, but my shoes were wet. I don't think he comes in through the window. I think he's already in the house. I stopped there, shut the book, listened. The old creaks of the floorboards, the ticking heat pipes, a far-off clink in the kitchen, like the fridge settling. All the sounds you learn to live with in a house this old. Except now they felt off, like background noise to something deeper, something just below the surface. I turned the book over and stared at the cover for a long time. It had grooves, scratches, like it had been slid across something rough. Not damage from storage, more intentional. I didn't sleep. The next day, I told myself I'd leave it alone, that I'd just tuck the diary back in the box, rewrap the shirt, push it into a corner, and never speak of it again. But by 10 p.m., I was back in bed, blanket pulled up, reading with the bedside lamp turned low. August 27th. There's something in the crawl space. I heard it again. Movement, shuffling, like someone army crawling through dirt. I told Dad, but he said it's probably raccoons. No one ever believes me. No one listens. I wish I could record the smell. It's not animal. It's not mold. It's something sweet and wrong, like spoiled fruit and meat. I closed the book and sat there in the dark, the smell almost rising in my mind as if she'd conjured it, like spoiled fruit and meat. Suddenly, I was remembering things, strange, quiet things we brushed off. The night Dad swore he locked the back door, but it was wide open at dawn. The time Kara said she heard footsteps in the attic, even though the entrance was bolted shut. She'd stopped sleeping alone a few months before she vanished, said the shadows were moving, said she'd seen someone standing behind her door, just waiting. I remember Mom rolling her eyes and calling it drama, teenage melodrama. God, we were so freaking blind. I kept reading. She talked about seeing someone, not clearly, just glimpses. A hand slipping around a doorframe, a boot behind a curtain, a reflection in the microwave that didn't match what was behind her. She called him the Thin Man, not because he was literally thin, but because he was blurry, like he didn't quite fit into the space around him. She said he was stretched wrong and always too quiet. The entries weren't daily. Sometimes there were gaps of a week or more. And in those gaps, the handwriting would change, get messier, harder to follow, like her thoughts were unraveling. But one detail stayed consistent. She said he only came when it was cold. She said he hated the sound of voices, but loved the dark. She said he lived in the walls. That night, I dreamt I was in my childhood room. Not as an adult, as a kid. Lying in bed under those dumb, glow-in-the-dark star stickers Kara and I used to fight over. Everything was still and wrong. The door was open, just slightly, and I could see the sliver of black hallway outside. No movement, no sound, until I heard the breathing. Not loud, just steady, wet, and real, coming from inside the vent. I tried to sit up, but couldn't. I was held down by something I couldn't see. Not hands, just weight, cold weight, something leaning close to my face, breathing slow, like it was smelling me. I woke up gasping, sheets soaked, skin freezing, and for a second, just one terrible second, I thought I heard something in the walls. I told myself it was stress, a resurgence of grief, trauma, that digging up these memories was stirring up the dust of old fears, and that was all. But the next day, I went to the vent in my room, the one near the bed, the one Kara used to say she heard scratching from. The screws were loose, not missing, just turned enough that the vent cover wobbled when I touched it, like someone had opened it before. I should have stopped. I knew that. Some part of me, buried deep and still rational, was screaming at me to put the diary away and leave it in the dark where it belonged. But it was too late. It had gotten into me. The next entries were more fractured, shorter, written in uneven bursts, like she was scribbling between panic attacks. September 1st. He left something under my bed. A shoelace. Not mine. I don't know what it means. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. I didn't tell anyone. I flushed it. But now I think he wanted me to. Another entry. Same day. Different ink. I think he's under the house. I think he lives there. Crawls through the ductwork at night, watches, waits. He doesn't eat. I never hear chewing, just breathing, scratching. Sometimes a laugh, but soft, like he's biting it back. The handwriting here broke me. It was ragged, angry, pressure so hard it tore the page in places. She wasn't writing anymore. She was fighting something, trying to keep herself sane. That's when I remembered something I hadn't thought about in years. We had a crawl space under the house. It ran the full length, from the back porch to the front foundation. Low and narrow, barely enough room to wriggle through on your stomach. We used to joke that monsters lived under there. Our dad sealed it off when we were kids, screwed the door shut after raccoons got in. But when I checked the side of the house that afternoon, I saw the screws had been tampered with. The metal latch was rusted clean through. Not fresh, but not 10 years old either. Something had moved through there. Not recently, but not long ago. That night, I kept thinking about a specific morning. I was 15. Kara was 17. She'd come to breakfast with scratches all down her legs, long, parallel ones, like she'd crawled through brambles. Mom asked if she'd fallen. Kara said nothing, just poured orange juice, slow and mechanical, like she was listening for something. Later that week, she stopped eating, stopped laughing, slept with the lights on. Dad took her to a therapist. They said it was stress, maybe depression, maybe attention-seeking. But I remember the smell coming from her room, that metallic, rotting sweetness. We said it was a mouse that died in the walls, sprayed air freshener, lit candles. Now I wonder if that smell was him. I went back to the diary. September 4th. He was in the closet again. I don't think he knows I saw him. I cracked the door, watched him breathe. He makes this little clicking sound when he's excited, like his throat's full of bugs. I watched him put something on my pillow, a coin, old and smooth. It was still there this morning. I put it in the vent. If he wants it, he can take it back from the dark. I stopped reading and went to the vent in Kara's old room, the one she swore he used. I unscrewed it, hands shaking, pulled it off. No coin. But there were scratches inside the duct, thin and curved, not animal, not rodent, human fingernails. 4 long grooves, like someone digging backward. I didn't sleep again. I lay in bed, every light on, holding the diary against my chest like it was a shield. The house was too quiet, the kind of silence that makes you feel like something's listening. I started hearing breathing again, but only when I held still, only when I stopped trying to hear it, just below the edge of awareness, wet, slow, like someone lying on the other side of the wall. In the morning, I went to the attic. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe something Kara left behind, something she hid. But there was nothing, just dust and forgotten things, except the shoebox. I hadn't touched it since I took the diary out, but now I noticed something rattling inside. I lifted it and turned it. Something knocked against the bottom. I peeled away the torn lining and found a slit cut into the cardboard. Inside, a photo, folded twice, stained at the corners. It was Kara, sitting on her bed, looking straight at the camera with that tired, hollow look she wore near the end. But what made me freeze wasn't her face. It was the man in the background. You could only see half of him. He was standing just beyond the edge of the closet, hidden in the shadows. One shoulder, part of a hand, and just enough of his face to show a stretched grin. Lips too wide, cheeks gaunt, eyes like oil. I flipped the photo over, writing in blue ink, small, hesitant. She was 17, my age now when I found it. Just a kid trying to survive something that nobody else believed was real. And she was right. We didn't believe her. We wrote her off as unstable, imaginative, overwhelmed. She screamed into a void, and we called it adolescence. God, I hated us for that. I waited until my mother left to go shopping. Then I went to the side of the house with a flashlight, a pry bar, and a stomach full of glass. The entrance to the crawl space hadn't been opened in over a decade, but the screws came loose easier than I expected. It smelled like death. Not strong, not overwhelming, just old, deep, like the scent had soaked into the soil and rotted there quietly, waiting. The space was tighter than I remembered, barely a foot of vertical room in some places. I had to crawl on my elbows, flashlight clenched between my teeth, dirt coating my shirt and knees. It was dead silent. Every movement felt like a scream. The beam of light cut through the dark in a tunnel, barely wider than my shoulders. And then I saw it. Not a body, not yet. A pile of things. Fabric scraps, bits of newspaper, plastic wrappers, an old keychain I recognized from Kara's backpack, arranged carefully in a corner, like someone had been nesting there, living there. I felt it before I saw it. The smell got worse. My flashlight caught something ahead. Wood, scratched raw, stained dark. Boards arranged in a haphazard wall, shoved up against the brick foundation. Behind it, a pocket of space I hadn't known existed. I moved closer, reached out, pulled at one of the boards. It gave with a dry creak. That's when I saw them. 2 bodies, or what was left. Bones, clothes, hair matted into dirt. One smaller frame curled into itself, hands bound at the wrists. The other, larger, older. Face collapsed inward from time and decay, but you could still see the jaw, the cheekbones, the teeth. I vomited into the dirt. When I could breathe again, I backed out slowly, scraping my shoulders, scraping my knees, whispering to myself that I'd imagined it, that I was dreaming, that this wasn't real. But it was real. The police came. They sealed off the house, brought in the forensic team. I watched from the driveway, wrapped in a blanket, while they carried out the remains in 2 separate bags. It took days to identify them. The smaller body, that was Kara. The second, they had no name, no ID, no fingerprints in any database. A man in his 50s or 60s. No connection to our family, no known address, no criminal record. But they did find something. Bits of rope, zip ties, old wrappers from canned food, scraps of clothing not belonging to either body. The crawl space showed signs of long-term occupation, years, maybe more. The police said it wasn't impossible, said there were cases of people squatting in homes, hiding in attics, basements, walls. They said it happens more than people want to believe. They think he was living under our house for months, maybe longer, maybe before we even moved in. They think he watched us. They think he waited until the right moment. The last thing they found was a plastic bag buried under the dirt near the bodies. Inside was a tape recorder. It was ruined from moisture, but the label on it was still legible, faded, written in Kara's handwriting. If you find this, it's already too late.
That's all for tonight's story. And if you're still here by the fire, thanks for staying with me until the end. Some stories, they burn themselves into you, no matter how much you wish they wouldn't. I'll have another one for you next time. Until then, keep your eyes open and your doors locked.